got that.
Nice. Thank you.
What was that?
That was this Carcassi piece from one of his things that he did.
Man, that's a good job.
Thank
That's a
you.
good job.
Thank you.
Kind of, I haven't played for anyone for a while, but
Or even at all for a while. That's I was watching your fingers, man. Most people can't do that. That's amazing.
thanks.
It's like riding a bike. It just starts coming back to you since you've been practicing. For a
Yeah,
couple
some of the
weeks.
stuff that I've done before, like that one I used to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes back. Some of it takes, a little longer,
Yeah.
fundamentally, but
That's cool stuff. I appreciate you doing that. I know it kind of got you outside your box a little bit.
yeah, I mean, I hadn't really, I guess, fully memorized it. I mean, you said you were seeing if I wanted to do that, so kind of sat there and memorized it. I kind of, lost the flow a little bit, kind of to catch back to where I knew I could go from.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I hope you keep it up.
It
I hope you really,
happens.
get back
Yeah.
into it because of the passion that you have for
Mhm.
it. You recapture that passion.
Well,
Well,
if you mess up in front of people,
Exactly.
It's not
when you hadn't even
Big
played in
deal.
whatever a year or 2 or 3 or 4, and you just
Yeah.
recently started picking it back up,
that, so,
that's awesome.
but,
Okay, well, we're going to talk about Grieving tonight. The Justin's Lighthouse Thursday Night Family Group. It's January 5th, 2023. I kind of left some space. We're just going to talk about a little thing, or a few things, but I left enough space for us to talk and try to make it a little bit interactive. But let me start this thing on forgiveness. We all suffer from brokenness in our life, in our relationship with God and in our relationship with others. Brokenness tends to weigh us down and can easily lead us back into our addiction. Recovery isn't complete until all the areas of brokenness are healed, or at least healing. God's ultimate plan for us and our world involves our complete healing. In Revelation, the Apostle John saw a vision of a new heaven and a new earth where the ultimate healing will take place. And then the angel showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. On each side of the river grew a tree of life. The leaves were used for medicine to heal the nations. Although we know that God will heal all things when he returns to rule, we still need to work toward healing the brokenness right now. Jesus taught, so if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, Leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person, and then come and offer your sacrifice to God. Giving and receiving forgiveness is an essential part of our present healing. This requires that we make peace with God, with ourselves, and with others whom we have alienated. Once we go through the process of making amends, we must keep our mind and our heart open to anyone we may have overlooked. God will often remind us of relationships that need attention. When these come to mind, we should stop everything and go to those we have offended and seek to repair the damage. Okay, so lots of stuff on forgiveness. Okay, so let's get into grieving. We've recently lost someone very close to a family, Justin's Lighthouse family, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to, and it's okay if you all don't want to talk about it, but it'd be a good opportunity to kind of combine the two, because the recovery process, certainly the early recovery process, is a grieving process in and of itself. And we think of like the stages of grief as being applied when we lose someone close to us, and it certainly does. But it can be very similar in the losses from addiction and alcoholism. Addiction is a disease of loss. We've lost so many love objects, and getting honest about that is key. It's really easy. We want to go, well, oh yeah, I lost my car, and I lost my house, and I lost my girl, and I lost this and that and the other, and we want to kind of brush it under the rug. It was so long ago, it's not that big a deal. And then there can be other parts where it can be like the lifestyle. We miss a particular part about the lifestyle, and I'll get into that in detail. And it doesn't sound socially acceptable to talk about that, so we'll just ignore that. We'll act like it wasn't a big deal. Even though we don't want to return, it still was a part of our life. We still enjoyed, whatever, hanging out with our buddies at the bar. We still enjoyed the dopamine rush, the adrenaline rush, just from whatever, chasing booze, chasing drugs, hiding, sneaking, manipulating. It was a whole other world. And I've heard a lot of stories over the years where even methamphetamine is, that's Satan's drug if there ever was one. And people like meth addicts in recovery can seem to move past, or a lot of them, in my experience, can move past the drug part of it, but they just can't let go of the lifestyle. Casinos, gambling has a lot to do with that too. A lot of times we were high or we were drunk, and we would go to the casino, and so there could be things in your life where it's still associated with that. Maybe that's not a good idea, but if you don't get honest about it and recognize it, you'll deny your way right back into shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, so think of addiction as a process of loss. We lose material things. Let's think about this for a minute. Let's take this a little bit slower, because I want you guys at least be thinking. You can share it if you want, but at least be thinking. What have I lost? What have I lost in my dysfunction, in my addiction? And of course I put a couple things on here like material things, but what material things? We lose dignity, we lose our identity. We lose who we are. We lose relationships. We lose friends and family. We lose stuff. We've lost houses, and how many times did you sell off or pawn whatever, a piece of electronics or something that was valuable to you, but in your addiction you'd rather drink or use, and so we get rid of it. And then, you wake up in recovery and it's like, oh man, where's all my stuff? And of course I've shared my personal story with you guys a lot. I lost a family member. I lost stuff. I lost cars. I lost houses. I lost everything. We just lose who we are in the addiction process. Now, fast forward to recovery. Recovery is a process of regaining. And, we always make the point, it's important to recognize for some of us, we're regaining a lot, but don't miss the fact that we also need to gain for the first time a lot of things. Maybe you never really knew who you were. And so you're not regaining some idea of who you thought you were, but you're willing to develop and discover who you really are. Come into your own and your own identity. Reclaiming what was lost, well, you can't reclaim it if you don't know what was lost. And this is the kind of stuff that comes out, when you really do a hardcore inventory. You get to see the things that we've lost, the things, the people that we've hurt, and how we've hurt them, and so forth and so on. It's all part of the dysfunction of our addiction. And now if we're going to heal from it, we've got to be willing to grieve it. And we literally go through these stages of grief. And, they don't always happen in order. They don't have to happen in order, which the stages of grief, and I just kind of kept it simple, but, the first stage of grief is denial, right? I can't believe this is happening. The shock and horror of the news. I can't believe, how many times we sat in rehab and gone, oh man, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. I shouldn't be here. I don't need to be here. I shouldn't be, we've all done it. And that's the denial part of the stages of grief. And it's an important one because it's the beginning, and it's pushing us into this process whether we want to be in it or not. And then the second stage is anger. And of course they can overlap. We tend to, in my experience, I think we tend to kind of hit all five, but then we might go back and experience some different ones at different times. It's not a perfect continuum. Okay, I'm in denial. Okay, I'm in anger. Okay, I'm in the bargaining stage. Okay, now I'm in the depression stage, which means next I'm in the acceptance stage and all is good. It doesn't really work like that, but it's neat. And some people have even come up with some subgroups. You might hang out in bargaining for a long time. You might hang out in any of the stages for a long time. And the important thing is to hang out. That's okay. Hang in there. Feel what you're feeling. Talk about what you're thinking about. Allow yourself to go through these stages, through the process of grieving. Or we can't heal. We stay stuck. We just kind of stay stuck on denial. Everything's fine. I'm good. I got to get back to work. I just got to get my car back, get my girl back, get my apartment back, get my and everything's good. And that's not unusual. Kind of like we talk about the phases of recovery. And so as we go through these phases of grieving, you may be in denial for a while. That's okay. Just recognize there's got to be more to come. Let's see here. Okay, these are three points, and this is kind of what I want you all to talk about. What did you miss, or what do you miss? In an honest way, what do you miss about the past? Even though we, and it's okay to talk about it. Even though we recognize, oh man, it's, that's not going to sound good if I say I miss hanging out I miss those days when we were passing out, during the football games, and I miss those days, and oh man, it was so much fun robbing all those people, and or whatever the craziness was about your alcoholism. But we'll miss the drug. We miss it. It was a friend for a very long time, right? That the drugs, the alcohol, it was there. It was our, I meant to bring that, that, you ever read that, I Am Your Disease? I meant to pull that out tonight, but it's really interesting. I'm your disease. I was always with you. You can't live without me. It's really interesting. It's like a whole letter from your disease. And it's not easy to move past it because it's been such a part of our life. Just kind of let that sink in for a minute. It was a very integral part of our life. Every day was consumed around drinking, hungover, feeling sick, thinking about drinking, figuring out how we were going to drink, the sneaking, the manipulating, the moving, figuring out how we're going to get the money to do it, drinking and using, whatever, until it just takes over our life. And then we get to a point where we can't do anything without it, and we can't do anything with it. So it reminds me of that old Robin Williams joke, when he's talking about women, can't live with them, can't live with them. Anyway, that's how we are with our booze and our drugs. We can't live without it, but we can't live without it. We can't do anything without it, literally. But then we can't do anything with it. Think of all the memories that are associated with, we'll call it the old days. All the memories associated with the old days. Or if you're thinking about a relationship, all the memories with those people, with that person, with that experience. They're not going to just go away because now we're, everything's different. How we used to, this right here is the core of, recovery. We used to use it to avoid and to escape. And then, now that we're in recovery, we don't have that as an option. And that's why early recovery, we can be a little out of sorts. That's when the big I kicks in. We can throw a lot of temper tantrums, and we can make a lot of demands, and we can show that self-centered part of our personality pretty easily, because we don't have the one thing that we used to use to cope with all of that. But time and more time and more time moves us beyond that. But it's okay to be honest about it. It's one of the worst things you could do for yourself, when you're trying to have honest conversations about how you're feeling or how you're doing on any particular day. The worst thing you could ever do, if you're wishing you could have a drink, to go, oh no, I don't even think about it anymore. Oh no, I'm been a little flustered this week, but I don't need to drink or anything, even though we've been obsessing about it, for 3 or 4 days. Talking about what we're thinking about is the key. Of course you're thinking about drinking because you're experiencing, distress, and that's what's gotten ingrained in us as a response. I feel distress, I need to drink. I feel distress, I need to use. I feel distress. And now in recovery, we feel distress, but we don't know what to do. And so, you guys know that the phase 1 and 2, that we have those gaps, but we push through it by talking about what we're thinking about. Missing the rituals of those old days. And of course, you guys have described a lot of things, and which is just kind of the lifestyle around it. We get into these patterns, and it's like every day I wake up and then I take 6 Lortab that I've left on my nightstand from the night before, and then I gotta lay there for 30 minutes until my body can move, and then I get up and I take the kids to school, and then I spend the next 6 hours looking for pills, and then I pick, it's like we end up in this using pattern, or drinking, whatever. I go to work and I'm sick all day, but I force my way through it. But then at 4:30 I get to leave, and I start getting excited in the drive home, and I stop at the liquor store, and then I finally get home and I feel relief, and I start drinking, and then all the world goes away, and then I pass out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I do it all over again. Just the rituals of our using life, and that's what it becomes. And then whatever you've associated with that is stuck. So whether that's driving or video games or music or passing out or going to parties or whatever it does, whatever's associated with that. Now we've got to learn how to do those things without it, and that takes time. We it's kind of sound funny, but we literally have to grieve our way into that change, feeling it along the way, being honest about what we're thinking about. Of course even though it sounds bad, of course you miss a huge part of that, because that's what our life had become. That was our life. One of my, something that comes out a lot, this is kind of like the meth cook, but one of the things that happens a lot is we can take pride in negativity. And so, in our addiction, in our alcoholism, we tend to become little mini experts in certain areas. Maybe we become experts in liquor brands and alcohol content. And the big thing now is like not just beer, but you got IPAs, and isn't that what it's called, IPAs?
Yeah.
And and just all that, the complexities of just alcohol, and it's like a special thing, and we learn all about this stuff, and we spend hours and hours and hours on Google researching, pharmaceuticals and pain pills, and what do they do to the brain, and how I can mix this with that, and we literally can make ourselves little mini experts. So we think we're smarter than the pharmacist and the doctors and just all this stuff. But I think there's a genuineness to that also. But we think of it from a negative orientation. And so we can use this, this pride and negativity to try to boost our own worth. I'm never going to drink again, but I'll always cook meth because I'm just a master at it, and I'm the greatest meth cook in the region, and they can't live without me, and I'm such an artist about it. And when I get out of rehab, I'm going to go start a pot farm, and I've already got the land picked out. I just need to get the money, and I'm going to buy. We get lost in this nonsense. That's kind of that first stage, that denial stage. We're not yet getting it. We have to grieve it, heal it, let go of it, but it cannot be a part of our future. And then the third and final one, this might be the toughest one to overcome, and that's the freedoms. I know it sounds crazy because we talk about addiction keeping us in the bondage of self, right? We're just like stuck in a straitjacket. It's a living hell on one hand, but then on another hand, there are a lot of freedoms to it, right? And I've come across a lot of people that, and I'm sure you guys have too over the years, that they enjoy being homeless. Let's say they're okay with being homeless. You stop and you talk to them, and you offer some help, and hey, I know a place, and you can have a bed and meals, and they don't want to do that. It's kind of like, at some point we give up on ourselves, in addiction, and it's so easy to start thinking, since I don't know how I'm ever going to climb over this mountain, so I'm just willing to accept, mediocrity. I guess, how many times have we all said that? I guess I'm just going to be a drunk forever. Well, that's just who I am. I'm just a drug addict, and I'm just always going to be on the streets, or I'm always going to have to be sleeping on somebody else's sofa. And it's a miserable feeling. I don't think most of us really want to accept that, but we get to a point where we don't know how to move past it. And so we just kind of brush it under the rug because we don't know what to do. That's denial. Well, I'm just always a drunk. That's who I am. That's what everybody says, and that's how I feel. But what's happening is we get used to not having any responsibilities. We get used to doing as we please. We get used to, somebody else paying for our existence while we're doing what we do. And there we're just stuck. We're just stuck. Have no idea how to get out of it. And so we start rationalizing all these things, some of the things I've already said. Anything to make us not feel bad about our situation. But moving forward in recovery, we need to be honest about those things. Thank God for recovery. I don't know what to do next, but I'm willing to learn. We start adopting a whole new way of thinking, but it's so important to be willing to at least touch the past so we can grieve it. I'm not talking about wallowing in it. We don't have to uncover every single rock. We don't have to deal with every disappointment, but we do need to recognize some things that we have lost and feel that. Nobody feels good about just the things that we've lost. Nobody feels good about giving away their dignity. And our families, I know a lot of our families tend to have, say, pictures of us in some compromising situation, maybe passed out on the living room floor in our own vomit. Nobody wants to be that person. And yet, we come to and we're humiliated and we're embarrassed and we don't know what to do. And so we tend to just ignore that it was even that big a deal. But the way we really heal and move forward is to recognize that's what we've become, but that's not who we are. That's not who we are moving forward. But we have to be honest about the past. We have to be honest about the past. So anyway, that's a good question. If you guys want to share anything, what do you recognize? Just a couple of things. What do you recognize about what you've lost in your process? I could give you a list of about 50, but I want to hear what you guys say. What have you lost?
Well, I've lost my partner. I've lost the person that allowed, and I really feel that over the past couple of years, I've been kind of the caretaker, and it was a gradual thing, but that's a lot of what I did was, look after Jerry, make sure, that he had what he needed, and not really, but kind of the denial that he was deteriorating mentally. Because he wasn't that way all the time, but it was enough, that there were certain things that, and as he's gone, I'm looking at stuff and thinking, why didn't he do, all these things that he didn't do, that was, that he should have been doing, that I didn't, just kind of ignored. And when you, I guess, got into the kind of an isolation type thing, to where I really have to push myself now to I've got to see people every day. And it would be real easy just to sit on the couch and not, because that's what I'm used to. You get used to there's somebody always there to talk to that needs you and depends on you, but is still kind of, does the basic things like getting the paper in, things, just these little things that I expected, thought were done, and now they're not done, and so I've got to do them. And I don't think I've really, as far as moving into the acceptance, I'm not there yet. I'm still kind of in denial, that this, it hasn't happened, but then there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And
you may be there for a while. Think about this. You, lifelong nurse, mom, you, more of your life than not has been spent taking care of everybody else. You got to be the one. You're the go-to person. And that's going to be your response, your initial response to this, which, of course, having nothing to do with addiction. It's just it's loss.
it's still a loss. It's still
Heavy,
the rituals are gone.
heavy. And right, but all the character. I'm glad you recognize. Yeah, just some of the characteristics are going to be the same.
And it's recovery. I'm in recovery
Yes.
now more than I've ever been.
Yeah.
This is recovery. And
Yeah.
I had this dream that I thought was really telling, that I went to my car and it was raining, and I had my car, everything was sealed up, but my car was soaking wet on the inside. I thought, that's me. I've shut everything off, but on the inside, you know, it's still leaking and it's wet, you know, and it's so, but you know, and there's a lot of, I mean, the anger. I'm definitely having a lot of anger, you know, because like I was looking at I was finding Jerry's old drawings, and I realized how much of him did I miss. I mean, there was some detailed good stuff there.
Wow.
And all I saw was a lot of the past few years, you know, almost him struggling to paint and draw.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that struggle wasn't always there. It used to be fluid. And I missed a lot of that. And, you know, the drawing and the painting, it's kind of allegorical to
Yeah.
a lot of other things, you know.
Yeah. He was very creative. Yeah.
But I mean, my life now, it's just like an ocean, you know. There's waves that come crashing, and then there's the quiet surf. But it's like the tide is out, and there's just mud and debris. And I can hardly see the ocean sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of different feelings, and but I don't have that horrible anxiety that I used to have about Cade and worrying. That seems to, I don't worry so much about him anymore. I feel like, you know, he's moving and he's okay, and that I don't know if that doesn't really have anything to do with the grieving and Jerry, but I mean, I had both.
Mm-hmm.
I had Cade. I worried about Cade and I worried about Jerry, and they were both. Those were my addictions, you know.
Yeah.
My worries.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to worry about Jerry anymore because he's not there.
Yeah.
To worry about. Okay. And I don't want to fall into any sort of codependent thing anymore with Cade, but that would, you know, it's with Cade and Matt, those are my people. That's my those are my children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so there's all this relationship things that has to that I'm changing, and I don't want to be dependent, but it'd be real easy too. So there's.
Yeah. That's amazing that you even recognize that and
I mean, I recognize them. It doesn't mean I internalize
consciously
them, but
making an effort,
I recognize them.
because it would be so easy just to just jump in this and just keep denying you in your life. A lot of
I'm
times,
still here. I have to move on. You know.
a lot of times, you know, in a situation like that where you've been caretaker for a couple of years, and it's easy to, in the beginning, to actually feel some relief and then feel guilty about it. You know, and I'm sure you probably got some mixed emotions about that, but it's two separate issues. It doesn't have to be the same issue. You can feel some relief for not having to carry that burden anymore, and also be sad for your loss. In our denial, we tend to cancel those out. Well, I have to be one or the other, and you know that. Gosh, I would never admit that I feel relief. Even though, well, of course you're going to have, you know, less of a burden, which gives you an opportunity to grieve, to feel all those emotions and do your thing at your pace. I'm glad that you're staying around people. Yeah. Which I guess we could take that to extremes too, huh? Mm-hmm. Just keep doing Lorna. Yeah, that's good stuff. I know probably all you guys are feeling some things. You know, it's still so fresh.
Yeah, well, I think you know, there'll be times where it's probably, you know, more noticeable, heavier. So, yeah, I was. Sure, as the next year or two go on, you know, it'll settle in or sink in, you know.
I think
Sure, it'll be harder at times than others, you know.
we were talking about this the other day. You know, in a way, I think is almost like you having to have that experience in this past month. It was either gonna flip you back around or catapult you forward. And I think it's just pushed you forward. I think you've maybe grown just emotionally more in the last month than at any other period. It's like you're starting to, your role as a son and as a brother, you know, a family member. It's like, hey, I'm gonna be a strong part of this group here.
Yeah, there's. You know, I mean, acceptance of it, and you know, not letting it like be a reason to hold you down more, and I guess, you know, some experience with something similar, you know, with, I guess someone who I, you know, was a little closer to, so, you know, it maybe didn't shock me as much from the get-go, but, you know, it's something you still, like, kind of like, you know, you see something, you might put you in disbelief, but it was, you know, really sudden. And I guess, I don't know, maybe if it was kind of healthy in a way mentally, that I guess when I think of Jerry, I like really don't even go to the most recent time I saw him, which, you know, was a couple weeks ago. I think my mind kind of just knew the light. I was kind of just, you know, functioning. I was just bodied there, but, you know, I can remember if I want to make the effort to, like, you know, go into that time frame, but what, you know, it's not really the way, as far as the last time you've seen someone, it's not the way you want to see